where they're supposed to be. And I'm just going to ask you some questions, and can't say anything wrong, can't make any mistakes.
Okay.
If you stumble and want to say something over, we can do anything
All right.
over. I'm only going to take little bits and pieces out of here, so just relax and be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
First question is, tell us about your relationship with Buena Vista College at the time, what you were doing, and why you were here with the college at the time that Old Main burned down.
Mm-hmm. Well, my husband was dean of the faculty, and he and the president had gone to Spirit Lake to a meeting up there, and were not supposed to be home for several days when this happened. And I was home taking care of the children.
Do you remember what happened at the time when you first found out? Tell us.
Very much. I had gone to PTA. I had come home about 10 o'clock and had gone to my bedroom to get ready for bed, and I heard the fire truck going down 3rd Street. And then pretty soon another fire truck going down 3rd Street, and I thought, oh my heavens, somebody's been smoking in the dormitory again and the mattress is on fire. Went to bed and slept all night.
And then what happened in the morning when you woke
Well,
up?
at about 5 o'clock in the morning, my husband stood at the door. And I said, what are you doing home? You're not supposed to be home till tomorrow night. And he said, well, Old Main burned. And I said, oh, of course it did. But I said, what are you doing home? And he looked so funny at me, and he said, you didn't know Old Main burned last night? And I said, oh, Bill, of course it didn't. I said, come on in and have some breakfast. And then I could see he was all dirty. And he said, Jack and I were called home, and we've been up all night. We're home to get clean clothes, a shower, something to eat. We've got to go right back because classes are meeting at 8. Then I began to realize he was telling the truth.
What was your feeling? What was your reaction when
Well,
you found it?
I was kind of numb. I was kind of numb. You know, you couldn't believe, dear Old Main that had the history of everything, and now it's gone. It was quite a shock.
A lot of people have talked about what Old Main meant before the burn, and dear Old Main, just as you said. Tell me about that. Why was it so important to the people who were here? I mean, we know it was
Well,
the main building on campus, but
It was all there was to the college, was just about Old Main. They ate there. They had their parties there. The theater was on 3rd floor, classrooms there, so that was it.
how did people think about Old Main when they were, before the fire? Was it sort of just taken for granted?
I think that's what we did. We just took it for granted that it would always be here, and it wasn't until it was gone that we learned to appreciate it. And it would be nice to have one building on the campus, but in a way it was a blessing in disguise for BV.
Tell us about that morning after, when your husband went back off to work. Classes
began at 8.
What was that day like?
Well, I had a Quantus Queen's coffee at my house at 10 o'clock, so I was busy all morning, but we had a good crowd at the coffee, and guess what the topic was? The burning of Old Main. And were you there? Oh, you weren't there? Then they'd start telling their story about it. So it got lots of publicity that morning.
What was the reaction about that?
Numb. You know, we just couldn't believe it. But nobody thought that the classes would go on, but they said no, classes were started at 8 and they would meet at 8, and they did.
And they would never missed a day of class.
Never.
What do you think about, what was people's reaction, I think, to that, the fact that classes went on, and what was it like a week later, 3 days later?
That I really couldn't tell you because I wasn't out and around that much with the family. I was kind of home taking care of things. I know my husband was never home those days, but it was a shock to everybody, and they didn't know just what had caused it.
What do you think now, as we were talking as we walk through here, 40 years later?
Oh.
Who would have thought that day? I mean, what's your feeling about where the university has come and how it's recovered from that tragedy?
My husband said that on the wall there were 2 shelves. Everything else collapsed and fell down into the hole. But the Christian flag was standing on one shelf. The honor scroll was on the other. And he said this is symbolic of where Buena Vista is going. He said it's got to be a meaning someplace in that. And I truly believe that. And everybody rallied around and gave their support, and plans went ahead.
What were some of the things that people did to give their support? Do you recall any? I don't know.
No,
Now,
just,
a lot of people talked about President Fisher and his resolve
Mhm.
to continue on with their.
well, they started giving more, I think, to help. And then at that time, you could get help from the government too, quite a bit, so that helped. And they went right ahead then and demolished Old Main and started to build it again. And I think my husband numbered the stones that made that archway, you know, and he numbered them so it could be rebuilt someplace and used in the same shape that it was before.
Now, someone told us the story, I don't know whether it's true, that actually some of those stones from the arch had been originally discarded, and they were covered.
That's right.
They were thrown in the lake. Did you
That's
know
right.
about that?
Yep, that's true.
Tell us that story.
And well, that's all I know. There was something else in a truck. What was? Oh no, that was the bale that they went up to. They borrowed some big truck, and at that time, someone gave the great big bale that's out in Stevens Center or out in the campus, and brought it back.
The
No,
victory bell.
no. Everybody just said, "We've got to save it. It's either to go on or die," and nobody wanted it to die.
And this came at a point, of course, where there were so many years of struggle and hardship for the college, and just seemed to be turning a corner, getting
That's right.
accredited and things moving forward, and this happens. And
In September of 1954, 56, 56.
how much longer was your husband here?
He was here until 76. We came in 46, and he retired in 76.
What do you think the impact has been on BV from the burning of Old Main?
Oh, I think it's made it much closer. Everybody, you know, just right away tied in, and the students rallied around and helped clean up and carried all the files and everything. They got as much of that into the men's gym, I think it was, as possible. They were great. Couldn't have done it without those students. And even some of the townspeople came down and helped that night. But as I say, I was sleeping.
Do you sense that still, that really the heart and the soul of this institution isn't the wonderful buildings and the bricks and mortar, it's the people who give, contribute, make up, are part of the BV family?
I think that's true with anything. The longer it is, the more sentiment there is. Yeah, I sometimes think maybe Storm Lake doesn't realize how much they have in this college and how much it does for the town, culturally and financially and every way.
So there's a lesson here from the burning of Old Main that we don't want to take things for granted.
Well, as we were talking a little ways before, my husband always said there's something good in everything that happens, and that's the code we've lived by in our home, and I think that was true of Old Main. We had to lose it in order to gain more, and I guess that was it.
And the important thing maybe is that we remember that, what it meant.
That's
so
right.
We don't have to learn in this.
That's right. That's right.
Boy, anything else you remember about Old Main and
No.
events leading up to that and the time since?
I know these steps in Old Main had been cleaned so many times with that oil that they were almost slippery, you know. It was a fire hazard in that respect. And then they thought maybe some birds had carried a live wire or some matches in and set it on fire. I don't know.
I don't really know exactly what caused the fire.
It just started.
You were here then at the time, immediately following Old Main, that we were talking about School Hall going up at Shader Chapel, the library, Loggy, those things. That all was within the next 10 years.
That's right.
Was it? And I think it's easy maybe to overshadow, I mean, what's happened here on the campus in the last 10 years, to forget that period from 1956 to 1966 or so was also a period of tremendous growth in building on this campus. Can you tell us a little bit about those years?
Well, they were lean years. You kind of worked for nothing, but then you loved the college, and that's why you stayed. And everybody was very, very dedicated. Very dedicated. That's about all I can tell on that.
And that's just one of the things it takes to keep it going.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anything else you'd like to add about Old Main? Or
No, I just wish Buena Vista the very, very best, and I think it's one of the better little colleges anymore, and I can't believe what has happened. We were so thrilled to get a GI building when the war was over for our library, which was moved out of Smith Hall in the basement and into this building. And we thought we had quite a bit in that GI building, but my husband kept saying, but we need more of a library, and I wish he could see it today.
I think that's everybody's reaction.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't believe what is here.
No, you certainly can't. And I know the alumni, when they come back, just can't believe that it's the same Buena Vista that they went to, you know, back in the 40s and 50s. But they're glad for it. They're glad for Buena Vista.
You think the reality, where we are today, has just exceeded what anybody thought was possible?
Oh, yes, yes. Never did we dream of anything like this.
Anything else you'd like to add?
And we had lots of fun back there. There was a closeness between faculty and students themselves, and it was just a good feeling. We had lots of fun.
I get the sense, I mean, that it really was. I mean, you know, the university now it's bigger. We have centers. We have, you know, it's small, but it's still hard to get to know every person here. But I get the sense that in those days, it was very much like a family. Is that?
Yes, very much. And you just waited every fall for the figures to come out on enrollment, thinking, how many did we gain this year, you know? And I suppose it was around, well, the GIs added a lot, but of course the GIs were a completely different type of student, and you had to handle them differently. And the men's dormitory was up in the music building, Edson Hall, and that was different.
One of the people who was here at the time also said that they thought it might have been partly because of the number of GIs here, that there were a number of students here who had seen a lot of adversity, seen a lot of destruction. They understood that you can't come back from this. Do you think that was maybe a factor?
Oh, I don't know. You had to handle them differently. You know, you couldn't tell a GI that had been out in the war for 3-4 years what they could do and couldn't do. It was a little different as far as discipline, but they accepted it, and they had their families with them, and it was real homey.
Great. Well, we thank you very much for
Glad to come.
coming in. Well, I'll let you off the hook now.
All right.
I usually take that mic off you before we go anywhere. All right.
Yeah, you're gonna make it.
Usually you have to do the subject something.
Oh, I have to cry to keep from coughing.
No, that's too bad. Have you got a cold?
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Mm-mm. I talked to somebody today that had one of these summer head colds, and she
A lot of times those summer ones are the worst.
I think they are, and she said